Well, hey everybody, it's your old pal Chuck, and I'm guessing you can tell from the title this is going to be another one of those little vlogs. Got my little remote here. Let's see how it works. It has a habit of disconnecting when there's lack of activity, but I'm sure you can tell from the title we're going to talk and my shirt. Got this from Ripped Apparel. I don't recommend them. Long story. Um, we're going to talk about what was a little bit of hot topic earlier in the week, and that has to do with Studio Series 86 Megatron. One of the Hasbro designers did answer a question. Now, we all know that from a leaked listing, Studio Series 86 Megatron is supposed to be coming sometime next year. It will be a leader class that will scale to Commander class Optimus Prime. Keep in mind that it's just the cab is roughly what a leader class figure would be. But it's the inclusion of the trailer that makes it a Commander. That's the world we live in now. I'm sorry, I'm leaning against the door here, it's squeaking. But the designer, obviously due to legal reasons, was saying if we get, or when we get around to Megatron, it'll be a tank. So, of course, that started the age old debate about why Megatron can't be a gun. Well, that started the whole, some horrible drawings of, kids being shot in the head running around with a Megatron and things of that nature. And I want to point out TJ Omega did a video, and this is actually, he said something that kind of inspired this, and as well as my sister giving me a little bit of information. Now, right off the bat, I want to say there is no way, no how, in any plane of existence out there in the multiverse, Hasbro will ever do a new toy gun Megatron. Just not going to happen. The social climate as it pertains to guns in this country is such that it would just be too much of a headache for them. But I want to present some ways that it could be a possibility. Now, before we get into that, and this might be a little bit longer of a vlog, certainly can't be a short, I want to mention how this all came about. Now, the original story, some of you might be too young to remember this. You've heard the stories of kids being shot playing with Megatron. Well, here is the story that, from what I understand, was the main impetus of pulling Megatron. A young child in Harlem had a toy Megatron. How he got it, I don't know, because Harlem in 1984 was not economically prosperous, and Megatron was a very expensive toy. Was outside. Now, the story that he was outside playing with it and a cop shot him. Now, the story that was told on the New York news, New York City news, where I live, is a little bit different. The young man pointed the gun, Megatron, at a cop in an aggressive manner. Now, what you have to remember is from the 70s into the mid 80s, in New York City, it was in certain parts, it was basically open season on the police. There was a lot of violence against cops. Police were not looked at very favorably. So it wasn't like the kid was running around playing with it. He pointed it aggressively and threatened the police officer. The police officer, not knowing what Megatron was, basically just saw the barrel, probably thought it was a rifle, and shot him. And that's what led to Megatron being pulled off the shelves. And keep in mind, if Hasbro hadn't done it, I guarantee you New York would have done it themselves, because New York was and is a city where the politicians feel they know better than the citizens, and the citizens agree with them and allow them to make decisions. So that was the first thing. That's what got Megatron off the shelves and became a mail order only figure, and was basically discontinued almost a year later. But unlike, say, Jetfire, Skyfire, Megatron was such a core character that they couldn't write him out of the show. Other part of the story that came a few years later that nobody ever really talks about is that in 1988, one Hassenfeld brother replaced the other Hassenfeld brother as the CEO of Hasbro. Hassenfeld brothers, Hasbro, get it? This brother who came in was a very liberal 60s hippie, and his friends basically assumed power with him as on the board of directors and what have you. This guy, first of all, was anti-war anything, was embarrassed that G.I. Joe was the #1 selling toy brand of the 1980s and the biggest selling toy line in the company. Now, just without getting too much into it, that kind of plays into why in the early 90s a real American hero was done away with, but that's a story for another time. So there was absolutely no way that they would do anything to try and bring a gun Megatron back. Now, of course, by 88, the sun was setting on the popularity of the Generation 1 toy line anyway, so it might not have been worth it. Another thing to mention is if that Hasbro really had the initiative or was interested, they could have just thrown money at the problem. While I don't think we would have ever seen Megatron back on shelves in New York, I'm sure there was a way that they could have just paid somebody off, made a donation, had the rules changed. Because really by the late 80s, you had that no realistic firearm rule. They could have paid something for an exemption or gotten the way around it if they were interested. That's an important part to the story here, if they were interested, which they weren't, for the reasons I just said. Now, moving forward, there are, very quickly, some people, I think even TJ touched upon it in his video, that the laws were changing. Well, laws don't change that quickly. There has to be discourse, there has to be discussion, there has to be votes. What was happening was public sentiment. And really, as the 80s wore on, the public opinion and sentiment towards realistic firearms was changing. So that's another reason why Hasbro didn't make that big of an issue out of it. As I said, probably would not have made them a ton of money to begin with. Now, let me just quickly rifle through, before we get into my next big point, some of the possibilities thoughts I had of how they could do it. My first thing was thinking pack Megatron in robot mode, which most leader classes are, and don't include instructions, and have something fun on the back where it's like a secret hidden alternate mode, and that you have to scan a QR code to get the instructions on how to transform it. Now, first of all, that would never work. That would just really piss people off. And by people, I mean politicians, people in law enforcement, because they're trying to skirt the laws. Second of all, I guarantee you there would be a lot of complaints from collectors who were like, well, I don't have a way to scan a QR code. I can't read things off of computer. I have this 1 in 1 billion eye disorder. You get my point. It just wouldn't work. Plus, 20, 30 years from now, when somebody would be picking it up, would the instructions ever be archived anywhere? Probably, but would they be able to be found? Who knows? Who knows if there's even going to be a YouTube 10 years from now, let alone 30. I keep adjusting. I'm actually using a new type of mount, just trying to keep this straight. The other thing I want to say is that there's this discussion about kids, and this would be, you can't sell it to kids. And come on, guys, we got to be honest here. What person under the age of 30 would even know who G1 Megatron is if they're not, if they're not a diehard fan? Even under 18, they're not going to get it. They're not going to get the connection. The Studio Series 86 line is really for guys like me and you who grew up with the movie and the brand. I mean, you're not going to have something like this. Mommy, Daddy, I sure would appreciate on the anniversary of my birth you picking me up that swell new Studio Series 86 Megatron toy. That would bring me most joy and be so delightful to have at my party with all my friends as we dance around the maypole. No, that's just not going to happen. Excuse me. That's what I get for trying to be funny. I almost choked myself. So this is, so you're not going to have some collector taking a $50 toy, going outside and, yay, running, oh, look at me, I'm running around with a toy gun. Or going up to a police officer and going, yo, not going to happen. First of all, they're not going to take the chance of losing a part or something. Oh, excuse me. And second of all, they're not going to take the chance of it getting broken or, something happening to themselves. That's because we're adults. We know better. Now, here's something TJ mentioned in his video that I didn't know because living in New York, really don't have access to Walmarts. Whole union thing. Whole other discussion. Walmart, a couple aisles over from the toy section, has a sporting goods section where they sell airsoft and BB rifles. Real steel, looks authentic, but it doesn't shoot real ammunition. Hold on to that for a second, because now we're going to go to my sister. As we know, Megatron, where did Megatron come from? We all know the Gun Robo line, Takara, yada yada. But it came from the show Man from U.N.C.L.E. That was the design. It was a Walther P90 pistol with an extended barrel, sight, and stock. What if I told you that the creator of James Bond, Ian Fleming, actually had a secret hand in the creation of Man from U.N.C.L.E. and ghost wrote a couple of the episodes? Now, the story I heard was that he was friends with the guy who was the main person behind Man from U.N.C.L.E. My sister kind of disagrees with that, and since she's more of a James Bond expert, I tend to err on her side. Well, as a thank you, if you remember, you can even go Google it right now. Google Sean Connery, James Bond, pistol or photo. It's this iconic photo of Sean Connery as James Bond in a profile bust holding a pistol up. It's actually a pose that's been recreated over the years with all the other Bonds. Instead of holding the Walther, I think it's Walther or Walther, the PPK, which is the iconic James Bond pistol, he was holding one with a longer barrel. That was a P90 airsoft pistol. Now, yes, there is a real steel P90, but this was the airsoft pistol because that's what they had on set. I don't know if it was just a miscommunication or they just couldn't tell the difference. But very iconic. So from that iconic photo, the guy who was the main creator of Man from U.N.C.L.E. decided to take that as the basis and create this science fiction pistol, this fantasy pistol with the barrel extension, scope, and stock. Oh, it's a good idea wearing this shirt today. Visual aid. So, it was never based on a real steel weapon. Now, follow me here. With that being said, Hasbro could make a Studio Series 86 Megatron based on the G1 pistol rifle design and say, well, this was not based on a real weapon. This was a airsoft weapon, airsoft pistol, and sell it in the sporting goods section. To me, it's not going to shoot anything, but from there, even package it in robot mode. I don't see anything wrong with that. Now, I'm sure that the laws about realistic firearms cover stuff, but again, even at the leader class size, it's going in pistol mode would be too big, and again would not look realistic. And again, that goes back to what I was saying. You would not have an adult collector who would be the only one buying this, running around on the street with it. That can cause confusion. Now, I'm sure this is probably not going to happen, but it is a possibility. And it is something that could be done to get around it. That if you sell it as an airsoft pistol. Now, let me also quickly add, I don't know if Target sells in their sporting goods section. I want to say after an incident, they removed all of their sport shooting paraphernalia and equipment and stuff like that. Definitely, it would not in New York. I can tell you pretty much right now, even the Walmarts on Long Island, I don't think sell airsoft and BB rifles. So getting it in New York might be a bit of an issue. But, selling, having it shipped from across the state and because I mean, you may not be able to sell it, but I think you can own it. Well, no, actually, in New York, you really can't own airsoft and stuff. But I'm sure we all got our masterpiece Megatrons without, being tampered with and shipping, right? So we know there's ways to do it. And even if they have to put a plug in the barrel that's removable, because I don't know in Walmart if those rifles are sold that way. At least it would be in the design of the packaging, and you wouldn't end up with what happens now with G1 and Masterpiece Megatrons being bought and sold in the United States, where the packaging is defaced because you have those plugs put in. Again, as I said at the beginning, probably zero chance, less than zero chance of this happening. Zero. I don't know why I'm doing that. I have glasses on. Of any of this happening. But I just wanted to share that there were some possibilities. The big one being if Hasbro would just open the checkbook, they can make this all go away. But they're not going to. It's not going to make them a lot of money. So, that's the main thing. If it would make Hasbro money, they would do it. But I just wanted to share what I thought, a couple ideas I came up with that I think are pretty good. I mean, I mean the idea. What I was really just inspired by what I saw on Twitter. Like people, oh yeah, this is. I'm like, come on, what adult in their right mind is going to run around with a gun? All right, well, toy gun. Come on. At the end of the day, the bottom line, it's a money issue. It's a dollar and cents issue. Hasbro wouldn't make enough money off of it to make it worthwhile to them. So that's about it. Tell me in the comments if you think I'm wrong, crazy, or what have you. Don't ask me about the shirt. Well, it's from Ripped Apparel, but again, I don't recommend it. Long story there with Ripped. I'm sure one of you will ask me, and I'll tell you there. But that's about it. If you like these little vlogs, let me know too. Maybe I'll do them a little more often. Already starting to see it. I mean, as I usually say, I can just add this to the list of videos that nobody watches because it's not movie toys or the new cartoon toys. Thank you so much for just disappearing once I started getting back into the main Generations line. And nobody's gonna. I mean, I could give you my social security number and nobody would even notice. But seriously, though, tell me what you think. Check out my other videos. Like, comment, and subscribe. This is your old pal Chuck, and I will see you next time.